Welcome, everybody. We are so happy all y'all are here. As people are rolling in from the waiting room, thank you for being here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're calling from. We are so thrilled to be joined with you. So feel free to turn your cameras on if you like, no pressure, but you're welcome to do it. There is an opportunity for asking questions here. So it's a great way to connect with our speakers as they have their cameras on. It's a great way to network as well. So without further ado, let's jump in to our talk today. So you are at the PowerToFly Chat and Learn Networking Strategies, Building Meaningful Connections. And my name is Hunter. My pronouns are he, they, and I am one of the moderators here at PowerToFly. So, Robbie, I don't think we're in full screen mode yet. So if you could pop us over into technical difficulties, a little bit of hiccup. This is where I do a tap dance. And normally I would pull out my little chihuahua, but he's on an exploration journey right now, terrorizing my mother and father as I'm visiting them. But this is a great place for you to participate. You can turn your cameras on. As we said, we will be recording, and the link to this chat will be broadcasted and published on YouTube in the following days. And feel free to write in the chat at any point. You can ask your questions and let us know your thoughts. You can message me, the moderator, at any time if you'd like to privately ask your question anonymously. Rob, we're still not in full screen, unfortunately. So just so you know, we're going to be posting in the chat the code of conduct. You can read it at your leisure, but please know that we support the highest level of ethical conduct, professionalism, and service, that we ask that you be kind and thoughtful in your interactions so that all of us here can have the best time possible, and that can be a great learning experience for all of us. And I am so excited to introduce our team here. We have not one, not two, but three speakers today, which is pretty darn cool. We are with the Talent Collective, and you can check out their resources by scanning that QR code. A little bit about the Talent Collective. They are on a mission to support employers on the quest to grow and develop their talent while helping individuals grow in workplaces that align with their values and goals. No wonder this is a match made in heaven here at PowerToFly. Talent Collective partner with their clients as executive leadership coaches, supporting new and experienced managers, and co-develop compensation strategies that help attract and retain high-performing employees, and people operations advising to support businesses while they scale and grow. The motto of the Vibrant Talent Group is, we grow vibrant, powerful teams. They offer recruiting structure for marketing, advertising, and creative worlds, including placing candidates in full-time and direct hires, fractional and consulting roles within their worlds of advertising and marketing, travel and leisure, wine and spirits, technology, SaaS, beauty and fashion, finance, healthcare, entertainment, and more galore. Wow, I feel like this is like a bedtime story. This is so fun. And finally, just a reminder that PowerToFly here, we are here to help you and be your partner in attracting, hiring, and engaging your diverse workforce. We're happy to follow up you with any information. You can fill out the form in the chat. We're dropping in a link, so feel free to do that. If this is your first PowerToFly event, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We have a lot of events. We do summits every month. This month, our May Summit celebrating global Asian identities in our Motivational May lineup. So we have so many amazing speakers, and now you're going to get to meet three of them. So first up, we have Krista Tan, and she is a co-founder at Talent Collective. Krista has 15 years of people operations, talent acquisition, and business strategy experience. She served as president of Premier Talent Partners, leading a top talent team of 65 folks. As she transitioned out of agency, she became head of people at Field Guide, a Series A startup, leading recruiting and people strategy. Krista currently is co-founder of Talent Collective and COO with Talent Refinery. Next up, we have Larissa Gerlach. There we go. Owner, founder, and executive recruiter at the Vibrant Talent Group. In her 15 years of experience in executive recruitment for some of the world's biggest brands, Larissa has seen firsthand the impact that their work has on the quality of life. In launching the Vibrant Talent Group, her goal is to match employers with employees who will thrive in their position. And Larissa is passionate about being able to keep a pulse on the industry and loves creative and marketing work because of her background in fashion. Yes, you better work, Larissa. She is a graduate of FIT in New York City. Whoop, whoop. New York in the house. And Holly Carpenter, VP, Diversity and Talent Experience at PowerToFly. Holly is an accomplished talent acquisition leader with 20 years of experience aligning recruiting strategy to business goals in both corporate recruiting and RPO space. Holly understands the importance of creative positions and engaging experience for candidates, which is crucial for attracting and retaining top talent. She has effectively implemented strategies to enhance the candidate journey from initial engagement to onboarding and beyond. Holly is currently VP, Delivery and Talent Experience at PowerToFly, and she is a mentor with the Arizona Foundation for Women's She Leads program, demonstrating her commitment to empowering and supporting women in leadership roles. Woo! Okay, that's enough from me. Wow, friends. Now let's get to the real good stuff, our speakers today. So let's do a little quick round robin. Krista, let's start with you. I read a bit about your bio there. Anything else you'd like to share? Any what's your family like? Any personal fun facts? Let's under the hood. What's going on behind the curtain?
Goodness, so much under the hood. And I love your energy, Hunter. Thank you for being here with us and getting us all riled up. I live in the Bay Area, right outside of San Francisco. I have 3 young kiddos, 4, 6, and 9 years old. My fun fact is that I have walked on fire.
Like on a volcano, or like one of the things that was like you do the coal walk thing?
Yeah, the coal walk. Yeah, Tony Robbins. Woo woo.
You did it with the Tony Robbins group?
I sure did. And
wow.
I know I was pregnant with my last kid at the time. And I literally remember thinking as I was walking up, like, I'm going to hurt my child. I'm going to hurt my child. Obviously did not hurt my child. It was my feet, and my feet didn't even get burned. So it was great.
Yeah, I walked on coal today. What did you do this morning?
And I know it was real because one of my coworkers was there and he got a coal stuck in between his toes and got burned.
Yikes.
So it's real.
Yeah, that's real.
Power of the mind.
Yeah, truly. Well, what a fun fact. Larissa.
Hi. So you got probably a little bit of a taste of it, originally from New York, and moved out to the San Francisco area about 8 years ago. So I actually love some of the questions in here about moving and having to start over again. I reflecting on some of the questions. I'm not sure if this is a fun fact, but I'll share this with everybody. I feel that part of the reason why I've probably become a little bit of a master networker, yes, I'm a recruiter, and I kind of have to, but moved around a ton as a kid. I went to like 4 different elementary schools, 2 different middle schools, and realized personally, I actually reflect back on it and loved it because I got to meet so many new people, and I got to have I have now a network of people and a number of different places in this country. But it can also be like super awkward and super weird and all the things. And so I'm excited about today's topic and to be super vulnerable with everybody and really honest about what it means, at least to me, to be networking.
Yes, yes, yes to that, Larissa. Radical vulnerability is my love language. Here we are, for real. That's so great. Holly, hello.
Hello. Thanks for hosting us today, Hunter. Excited to be here. I am Midwest at heart, so originally from St. Louis, but I am currently living in Phoenix, Arizona. So we've been out here for about a dozen years now. I still kept my 314 area code though. Cannot give it up. Cannot. Will not ever. I have two girls at 9 and 15. So we are relearning how to parent with our 15-year-old, right? As it's completely different, and still grateful for my 9-year-old who still loves me every day. Let's see, very fun. Networking is difficult, and I'm excited to jump into it today, right? Especially in the digital world that we live in, and the less and less personal interaction. I think it's a whole new, even for me, right? Having to learn how to network again. It's tricky, and I think we'll be able to learn a lot, and I'll take away some ideas today as well. I'm excited for it. Fun fact about me. So living in the desert, I'm surrounded by all these beautiful mountains. I love to hike. However, I'm giving it up for a little bit, not only because it's like 100 degrees today, but the last time I went, I saw a rattlesnake, like a real life rattlesnake, like inches from me. And so I'm pausing for a bit and letting them do their thing on the mountain.
Yes, it's their world. We just live in it, right?
Yes,
They're the
correct.
Frank Sinatra of the desert. You're just like, okay. Wow, I saw, I mentioned I'm visiting my parents right now, and they live in the mountains. I remember when I saw my first rattlesnake, and that sound, it's like primordial in our DNA to be like, do not go anywhere near that sound.
Yes, for sure. The
Well,
other way.
yeah, I'm glad you didn't get bit, because for those of you that may not be aware, baby rattlesnakes are the most dangerous ones because they don't know when to stop biting you, so they just keep releasing their venom. Fun fact, on that terrifying note, let's get into it. So you can ask questions in the chat. Clearly we have fun here. We all have fun. So the way it's going to work, friends, for the next 50 minutes, we will bounce between the pre-submitted questions that a bunch of y'all sent in advance. Thank you so much for that. So I'll be pulling from those throughout the talk. If you hear your question that you asked, you can give a little shout out in the chat. I love that. And anytime, feel free to ask a question in the chat, and I will ask it on your behalf. Because if you're thinking it, I bet 2 other people are as well. And just a shout out to our global community here. We have the Bay Area as well, more SF people, more Bay Area, but then we have Ireland, more Bay, Los Angeles. I saw Colorado, Uganda. Yes, we have Uganda. I think I saw Japan in here too at one point. Yes. So it's so amazing that we have this global. Yes. Yep, we do have someone from Japan there. This global community. It's so lovely that you all are here. Savannah, Panama. This is so amazing. Just incredible. So, like we were touching on in our intro here, networking is a whole new creature, and there's immense opportunity here. Like we can see, we're on this call, and we literally have people from around the entire planet, and that is exciting, and that can also feel very daunting, I feel like, for some of us, and maybe just like, where do I begin? How do I do a cold outreach? How do I connect with people? How do I have those authentic, vulnerable, Larissa, like moments with someone that maybe I haven't met yet? So I'm curious, actually, Holly, I'll jump it over to you to start, because you said you've been relearning how to network. That was you, right? You said that? Yeah. So what does that mean for you? Like, what does it feel like is different? And what are some of the things that right off the bat that you feel like you've had to relearn?
Yeah, I mean, I think, most of my career, I should say half of my career, I was in the office. And a lot of those organizations had formal mentoring and networking programs, right, available to their employee base to be able to allow for those engagements and those opportunities to perhaps be paired up with a senior leader or to be paired with somebody from other departments. And it was easy. You were even networking in line while you were grabbing lunch or coffee or wherever the case was be. There were lots of those just organic opportunities to network and have those conversations. In 2011, when I moved out to Phoenix, I actually moved into a remote role. And it was different. It was different, right? I was the only person, I didn't know anybody else at this organization. And I had to, be proactive in doing those outreaches and finding those moments for personal connections, because we know when we all went remote, or most of us went remote with COVID, we went from meeting to meeting. There was no chit chat. There was nothing other than 30-minute meetings, however many times a day, right? 16 times a day. And there was never those, how was your weekend? What did you do? Right? Those moments went away. And so now it's trying to get back to those moments. I'm still remote, right? So that hasn't changed, but now it's making sure we're giving time for those moments, not only to those that you work with, but those that you no longer work with, maybe those that you may have worked with in the past, or even finding ways to connect with people who are like-minded, right? You see somebody post something on LinkedIn, you attend an event like this, you connect with them. Hey, I really appreciated that suggestion you gave, or I really liked that story you shared, or I see that you work here and in a similar title than me. But it's having the confidence to do that, right? They don't know you, you've never spoken with them. So it's my own confidence in saying, even though I'm asking or making a connection to them, I have something in return. Maybe it's somebody in my network that they want a connection with. Maybe it's a resource that I can share that I think could be helpful for them. So it's making sure, it isn't always the what's in it for me. It's just growing your network and finding that like-minded individual to be able to share digitally, right? And growing that network.
I love that. That's so wonderful that it's this give and take relationship, right? And what you sparked in me while you were talking is this abundance mentality, as opposed to, oh, I need to talk to this person right now to get a job. It's like, yeah, we're trying to grow our careers, right? But there's also this longer game, this longer opportunity, really, to get to create relationships with people. And that can be abundant but we have to put in the effort, right? Abundance just doesn't, I'm summoning abundance. Yes, I have my own mantras in my mind, but I have to put in the effort for abundance to hear my call, right?
For sure, absolutely. And but I'll say abundance is great. However, you still want to be mindful, right? You don't want to go and connect with every single person that you possibly have. I mean, think of how many connection requests you get. There's that joke that people on LinkedIn, they're either a recruiter, a salesperson, or looking for a job, right? Those are the three categories that are on LinkedIn. And so you as an individual need to make sure that, a lot of times you go out and you connect with all of these people, and then your feed is filled with things that aren't relevant to you or don't really matter or meaningful to you. So it's okay to go back through and kind of purge a little bit and make it more pointed in where you want to focus on, so that it becomes more valuable to you in that limited amount of time that you have to put forth to networking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a spring cleaning, right? It's nothing personal. It's just like, I don't know who that person is. Like, we've never talked. What is that? And you're doing them a favor too, because it's like, it's just clearing the board, right? To be very intentional, as you said.
For sure.
So we've talked about a little bit too earlier. Some of you mentioned being weird and awkward. Are there ways that we can start with you, Krista, about how do you overcome feeling awkwardness if you do? And how do you create those genuine connections with people that so it doesn't feel like spam or automated or autopilot? How do you really foster those genuine moments?
Mm-hmm. I think the awkwardness, it starts with finding the right events to go to, right? Because I remember back when I first started recruiting 15 years ago in an in-person world, where I would just go to these random networking events where it's like this hodgepodge of people that like you go and you're like, you know this person wants something from you, and then like they're trying to assess, what do you want from me? And it seriously, it just is very, very awkward. And now I run a community for women in recruiting, and all of the people that come are recruiters or people in the recruiting space. And so right off the bat, we have commonality and we have something to talk about and something that we're all interested in talking about. So regardless of your industry or, you know, if you're looking for a job, I would say finding the right events to go to is a great place to start. If you can, doing some research on who will be there, just be a little bit prepared of who's in the room, especially if it's a more, you know, smaller environment, more intimate environment. So you're just more prepared going in. And then I always think too, like, preparing what do you want to say, like what are you trying to get across to people, and especially if you're maybe more of an introvert, or you know, you need to take a minute to kind of articulate that behind the scenes before you go out there and are talking with other people. So those are just a couple of things that come to mind for me.
Fantastic. I love that. Larissa, I'll also pitch it to you for this one because you also mentioned self-identified awkwardness.
Yeah, I think the other piece of it beyond what Krista shared is finding potentially some commonalities. So I tend to find actually that people that aren't necessarily from the Bay Area, I connect well with, because I am not also from the area, or even just folks that have moved around in their lives, right? I think that there's a level of sort of comfort in that way. Other things you could be connecting on are potentially like schools you went to. Certainly if you are in a specific area where they're, you know, like I went to Wash U, and you know, whatever it is, right, is often, even if it's 20-year difference in alumni, you know, in terms of when you graduated, I think there's a great opportunity to find those commonalities. I'll share with everyone too. What did we talk about prior to this starting? We talked about the weather, right? Talked about where we're located, but those are things that, you know, right? Like we're all just trying to find commonalities with each other. We're trying to make some connections. So I do suggest the other piece too that I tend to think about, you know, is if you're coming prepared to an event with a specific subject, or maybe something that's going on in the news in that specific industry, or maybe there was a recent, I don't know, like AI, of course, is impacting almost every industry, right? But knowing like how is AI potentially impacting your specific industry or the industry of the event that you're attending, right? Just kind of coming in with maybe a little bit of like an icebreaker in a sense that you'll plan on starting with before going a little bit deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some chiming in here from Rob as well. He agrees that doing your homework is so important. And also dropped a link there for networking for introverts from a different chat, which is a great chat, and just so helpful because I learned actually live on a call that a new word that actually is me, which is an ambivert, which is someone who is like can present as extroverted, but then actually can be quite introverted at times. So as you can see, I'm energetic and buoyant and all that, and people do connect, fire me up, but it's because I'm prepared and I'm excited to talk about the topic with all of you. But if I don't feel prepared, I get extremely anxious, I get extremely quiet, I feel very insecure, my imposter syndrome starts firing at all cylinders. It's not fun. I try to rent that spot. I try not to live in that spot, so I have to do the work to get out of there. So I completely agree that you can that prepping is so important and creates a foundation of confidence that if I know I'm like, oh, this is my lane, this is my zone of genius, and I can connect just with one person, like you were saying, Holly, as opposed to mindfulness, as opposed to trying to catch everybody. If it's quality over quantity, it's like, oh, I made 2 really great connections in my vertical, in my field. That's a huge win. One is great. So I here to all of that. Okay, so what are some other questions? If any of you in the chat on the call, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. I'll keep going down our pre-submitted ones, but if you have ones, feel free to ask them in the chat. Okay, so let's talk about remote work for a moment. Let's jump over to that. And I'd love to chat about how can connections, right? We're just talking about building our career, right? And especially when you have when you can listen more than say. So if you're in these remote environments, Holly, we were just talking about, what is the effective way to create these connections by listening?
Yeah. I think it's those little things, right? So if you're in a meeting and somebody mentions a sports team they're rooting for, then you can go back and drop them a one-on-one chat to say, oh, you like the Cubs? We have a friendly rival here. I'm a Cardinal fan, right? Like, or, anything. It could be their love of coffee. It could be about anything that they mentioned, but just those little details can spark a conversation that wouldn't have been opened up otherwise, right? And in remote work environments, it's so important to do that. And you can even do it, not even in remote work, but even digital networking, right? If somebody just shares something in a post, you can then, it's the whole commenting thing, or send them a one-off message and say that really, resonated with me. I'm also alumni at that school, right? So you can use it in many different ways. But I think for me, it's the little things that open up an opportunity for discussion. I don't know, Krista or Larissa, if you have something else to share.
Those are a great start.
You
I know,
nailed it,
it's like,
Holly.
right. I mean, and I think we've all shared like little pieces about ourselves. So I think even like as an example, ask me about FIT. I would love to talk about fashion, right? Like ask, right? Like each one of us have shared, right? Like Holly shared
Right.
that she loves going on hikes. I'm positive she would love to talk more about some of her favorite hikes, like
Yes.
things like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it's that way, it's like really genuine, right? As opposed to like the spam email that's like PTF event and then nothing specific at all. You're just like, that's a copy and paste if I've ever seen one, and but it's like, oh, I also like hiking and da 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 da. It's like it shows effort, right? It shows that you actually are invested in potentially developing a connection.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So there's some folks that are, as we talked about, like this global community, right? So someone asked specifically how, let's see, where's that question? Oh, right, here we go. So someone is moving back across the country. They lived on one side of the country, they live on another side of the country, and they're looking for how they can build up their network in this new location. So, Larissa, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was excited about that question because that's exactly right. It's like, oh, that one's built for me. But I you have to be awkward and you have to be vulnerable and you just sort of have to put yourself out there. I will say some of the things that I did when I moved out to, and things that I continue to do, I'll be honest with you, even though it's been 8 years, friendships ebb and flow, it's people move. And so I continue to put myself out there. I go certainly to a lot of networking events. That's how I met Krista. I will tell you, coming back to the research side of things, I still have a little notebook down below in my desk, but I have notes on every person that was going to be at that first Talent Collective event, and specifically like what they did, where they were from, right? Like anything I could speak to them about. But beyond networking events, I've joined different like local communities. So I'll share one that I've joined that is Bay Area. It's called Bay Area Adventure Girls, right? And so it's women all ages that go on adventures. But it's been a great way to meet people that way. Oh my goodness, where else have I met people through apps? So there's an app called Hey Vina. It's specifically for women, and it's specifically for friends, right? To make friends. I've done things that way, but also thinking like beyond that. I mean, there's literally meetup.com. There's Facebook has all sorts of events. I've met my friends through a dog park. I have a dog, and right, like that's a great way to meet people, is try to think about just commonalities. It doesn't have to be in this sort of like formal, I'm going to a professional networking event to meet people to find a job, right? Like most people really build their careers and build their communities in many different ways. But you do have to put yourself out there. You do have to know, that's it. But I have friends right now that I'll introduce them like, oh, this is my Facebook friend, right? Like I met them through a Facebook group a couple of years ago. That's how I met them initially. Obviously we've gone farther than that at this point, but but that's how I personally have been able to establish I didn't know anybody other than my boyfriend, now husband, when I moved out here.
I love that. Rob also dropped in the Hey Vina link there if anyone's
I love
interested.
it.
Yes. I also love when you're talking about the Bay Area. I love to it was like acronym. Oh, BAG with 2 A's. That's a cool
It
group.
is. And that's what they call it. Oh, I'm a bad girl.
It was like, ooh, she's a bad girl. I love that. Um, Krista, do you have any thoughts on this? I love like these outside the box ways of connecting with people. Do you have anyone in your life or some people in your life that came up in maybe an unexpected way or in an event that was outside of the box?
Oh my goodness. I probably do, but I can't think of anything in the moment.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not as adventurous as Larissa to be in the bad group. I'm sorry.
But there's still time. You can always
I know
join.
I might have to join.
I mean, if I was allowed, I would join too. Well, what about transitioning from one job to another job, from one industry to another? What are your thoughts on that, Krista?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different ways that you can approach this. One of my favorite ways to maybe meet more people in that industry or that job function is informational interviews, right? So actually, when I moved to the Bay Area from San Diego, I was trying to get into recruiting. I didn't have any recruiting experience. And so nobody was hiring at the time. It was 2008, the middle of the recession. I just reached out to a ton of executive recruiters on LinkedIn. I probably reached out to 50 and I maybe had 3 people that responded. And I just said, you're probably not hiring, but I'd love to have an informational interview with you and learn more about what you do. And one of those women is actually a close friend of mine today. So it's just about reaching out. A lot of people don't do that. I mean, you'd be surprised that, you do get a lot of sales emails and emails on LinkedIn, but you can immediately spot those. And then you can spot the ones where it's somebody genuinely interested in learning about you, learning about your background. Another interesting way could be finding similar people or people that have done that transition already. So if you're looking to go from retail into tech or something like that, try to find people on LinkedIn or through other groups, communities, networking groups that have made that transition and talk to them about how they went about that and what tips that they might have for you or people that you should meet. I always end every call too with, is there anyone else I should talk to? Is there anyone else you recommend I talk to? But yeah, joining like communities, other groups that are in that new role or that new industry, I think is another great way to network.
I love that's such a great actionable tip too. Is there anyone else I should talk to that you would recommend?
Yeah.
That's Keep that one, everybody. That
Yes.
one's real good. You can do that today.
Yeah.
I love that.
Definitely.
There's a few questions in the chat here that I would like to touch on. And Krista, I want to stick with you for a sec because you just mentioned doing all these cold outreaches to the LinkedIn folks, to recruiters rather. And one of them's a close friend. And that was not specifically about a job. And someone asked, what is the best way to reach out to recruiters regarding a job you've applied for or interested in? What are your tips on that?
Yeah, so LinkedIn messages are great. I mean, that's probably the quickest way because you already have access to them. If they list, I mean, just go one extra step and look into their like about me section on their LinkedIn profile. And a lot of recruiters do include their email address. So reaching out via email is great too. And again, on this topic, I mean, you could overnight get 1,500 applications for a role that you just posted, and impossible to go through those 1,500 people, but the people that actually message me and take the time to send a direct message, I'm going to look at those people first, right? Like you'd be shocked, out of 1,500 people, maybe 3 do that, right? So it's incredible to think about, even when I posted recruiter jobs, that more recruiters don't do that to find their own job. But like it doesn't guarantee you're going to get a call with me, but it guarantees that I'm at least going to see your profile in this huge pool of others.
That's such great advice. Larissa, can you tell me a little bit about, because I loved how Krista was just talking about all the applications pouring in and then messages. What does it look like on your side when people are submitting applications? Like, what do you actually see?
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
what's your world? Bolt, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain moment. Like,
Oh,
tell
this is what
us.
you see. Oh.
You're like, it's fire, it's fire over here.
So if you're applying to a job through LinkedIn, every single applicant comes through as an individual email, and you sort of see their their sort of LinkedIn profile, and then if there's a resume attached, that's attached to the email. Typically, if you're smart, you're setting up some sort of a rule in your email inbox, so they're all going into a certain, folder, so you're not just like inundated with your inbox. But that's how it looks from a LinkedIn perspective. There's a lot of conversation around ATSs, or applicant tracking systems. So if you're on a specific company website applying to that job, you might be landing into one of those ATSs. On that end, typically what you're seeing then is maybe you're not getting an email for every applicant, but when you, from a recruiter perspective, when I log into that ATS, I'm seeing a list of all the applicants. And typically what I'm seeing, of course, is their name, their title, and the company that they're coming from. Yeah, it's it's a lot, to go one step beyond what Krista shared. Is I do recommend absolutely to make yourself stand apart, and a great way to do that is to be messaging directly, if not the recruiter, also the hiring manager for that position. You can typically figure that out pretty easily by going onto that company's LinkedIn into their LinkedIn page, and then kind of scrolling through the people that work there. But my recommendation is not, I will say how many times I get messaged on LinkedIn, and all it is I've applied to this director of marketing role. Well, congratulations. Right? Like beyond that, why do you think that you're a fit for the role? Why did you apply to the role? Like, what do you know about the company that you think that you're excited about, or the industry that you're excited about? Going that one step further, that's what's going to make you stand apart.
Yeah, those are really good. Really good tips, and good to know what it's like for y'all, right, on the
Yeah.
other side. And that can inform not only how people apply, but also maybe some empathy for the mass amounts of work that you have to do as well with going through all these applications. I'm curious too, Larissa, could you just give us a quick high-level definition of what's the difference between a recruiter and a hiring manager?
Oh, yeah. So I'll start with the hiring manager. So a hiring manager typically is the person that the role is going to be managed by, right? Like the person. So if we think about in a marketing perspective, it might be the head of marketing will be then responsible for hiring for, let's say, the marketing manager. So that head of marketing would be considered the hiring manager for the position. In a case of a recruiter, that recruiter typically is working hand in hand with that head of marketing to help them fill that marketing manager position. In some cases, the hiring manager, or in this scenario, the head of marketing, is actually responsible for doing their own recruiting. They might actually be the person that's reviewing the resumes, and getting through all those applicants. In a dream world, though, they do have support of a recruiter that's doing the initial review of the resumes and the initial screening of the candidates, and then they're just being handed the folks that are in the right alignment with what that hiring manager is looking for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I love it because it can all, if it's just like any vertical, right? Like if you don't really it's not your world, like why and how would we know the difference, right?
I know. I'm just like throwing out industry terms,
No, no,
right?
no, you're good. It's just, it's, I catch myself too, and I'm just kind of like boop a doop, and I'm like, wait a second. Does anyone know what is the words that are coming out of my mouth right now? But everything you're saying makes total sense. But I realized I've actually never asked that question, so it was great, 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 great to hear that. Thank you. Um, okay, Holly, there's a question. Someone asked, uh, they're looking for a mentor. What do you recommend as first steps to finding a mentor? And I'll add a little bit onto this. What's the difference between a mentor and like a coach, right? There's differences there.
Yeah, there are a lot of differences. And I think, finding a strong mentor is invaluable. In any place in your career, right? Whether you're starting out just out of school or even in like myself in a leadership position, it's helpful to have just that diversity of thought, right? To be able to help drive your thought thinking differently. So what I would say is I would it all goes back. I think you're going to find a common theme here. It goes back to the research, right? It's doing the research to find the person whom you would want to be your mentor, and asking them. And having the confidence to ask them, right? So I had mentioned in my bio that I'm part of a mentoring program. So it's a local organization that offers this mentoring program to where they'll match you with mentors. So you also don't have to just take that responsibility yourself. You can find organizations who support you in that growth and where you're looking to up level, and they can do some of that hard work for you. So it doesn't all have to fall on you. But it can be as simple as finding a handful of individuals and reaching out to them on LinkedIn and saying, I find your background really inspiring or encouraging. We have a lot of parallels. I was hoping to see if you would be open to a conversation, right? And just ask them to have that conversation, and then it can come and turn into, it's almost like dating, right? And then it can turn into something a bit more formal. But it's having the courage to ask. But I would say it's about the legwork and doing the back end to say, ooh, this could be a good now for me. In my mentoring program, I actually asked for somebody not in the talent acquisition space. Like I said, I want to grow as well. So I asked for somebody in a very separate. So I have somebody in like the financial lending individual space now, and I'm learning about her struggles in her industry, and how we can overcome some of those together. So it doesn't necessarily have to be aligned by industry, because there could be other people like me who are not necessarily looking to stay in that space and grow too.
I love
And the difference between coach and mentor,
Oh yeah.
just to add on to your question, Hunter, sorry.
Oh,
But
please.
I almost feel they're the same, to be honest, because, or at least that's my style, right? Like as a mentor, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about you and how you're going to grow and how I can help you grow. And so it's, I ask my mentee to come to the table with what they want to talk about, and we work through those challenges together. And so to me, I see that almost as one of the same. But Krista, Larissa, you may have other thoughts there.
One thing I wanted to add, I would actually agree with you, Holly, on that. When asking someone to be a mentor, or when you're looking for a mentor, I actually heard this on a call last week and loved it. And I think I've made this mistake before. Like I would reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Would you be open to that? And, I explain why and blah, 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 but that's like a huge ask. And so making, like Holly recommended, making the ask of, are you open to a chat? Or I'd love to pick your brain about XYZ, and make it like a small, manageable little bite. And then that opens up potentially more meetings and more calls from there. But asking someone to be your mentor is kind of it's perceived as a really big responsibility. And so you may get fewer yeses.
That's solid advice, because also it's a two-way street. You want to make sure it's a fit, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
maybe just getting a few calls in first, and you're like, oh, that was valuable. I'm glad I connected with that person. I don't want to talk to that person every week, like, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be not everyone isn't for everyone.
Yeah,
As a
exactly.
recovering people pleaser, this is my motto these days. Yeah, I am, I'm very grateful for the opportunities to be a mentee and to give back to people. I actually learned about a program by hosting a chat here at PowerToFly called startout.org. I applied, it's for the queer community, and now I have a mentor through that program, and he meets with me weekly. He's in Ecuador, he's in another totally in like a different vertical than me. I did kind of like what you were saying, Holly. Like, I want someone to introduce me to things that I don't know, but he knows how to run his business, right? And there's things that translate. It's a startup program. So totally support that. And it was a huge relief to like find an institution that's like matchmaker for me, So I support that. Okay, we have about 15 minutes left. There's a couple questions in the chat I want to ping to as well, but feel free to keep them coming. We're gonna circle back around to good old LinkedIn. Alana asked, I message people on LinkedIn a lot. I do not pay for premium. Do you recommend paying for premium? And is there a way to avoid paying for certain features?
I don't know the differences. Do you, Larissa? Like
I personally, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. That's, right? Like if you are in an active job search, you might want to pay for a premium for a period of time. Because I know if you just have the very basic, you can only message, I don't know what the number is, but maybe only like 10 people or something like that a week.
Yeah.
Whereas there we go. Non-premium is only 5. Yeah. I was like, it's pretty low number. Which is fine. Like if you're not in an active job search, I forget who said that. Was it Holly or was it Hunter that said it earlier, right? Like you're only on LinkedIn for 3 reasons. You're a recruiter, you're a salesperson, you're job hunting, right? Like, but right, I think that's what I would be thinking about ultimately is what are you trying to utilize it for? It is certainly worth the money if you are a job hunter, a salesperson, or a recruiter. But outside of that, I would probably be thinking there's other ways of connecting with people outside of LinkedIn.
Totally. I agree with that because I've actually personally gone through cycles of paying for premium for a month when I'm launching something or when I was actively job searching to expand that reach. It's a pay to play platform, right? Like nothing is really free, as we know with social media, more so than ever. But then I unsubscribed, right? It's like, okay, cool. Like I spent $40 and that's a blessing to be able to do that. And if you can put in that investment for that extra outreach, it can be worth it. But if you're not, I completely agree. If you're not actively searching or selling something, it might be one of those things that hits your credit card every month and you're like, oh man, I spent $100 on LinkedIn that I didn't even use. What's happening? Uh, okay. We had another question in the chat that was so great. It was, oh yeah, Ahmed asked, do you have any advice for talented people outside of the United States who want to work on international projects? Any advice on that, popcorn style?
I have like more questions. I'm like, what do you, like, what are
Sure.
like, what's the international projects, right? Like what may
Yeah, so it's a project from United States of so I'm from Tunisia, so I'm self-taught developer, and I have a lot of experience in Tunisia, but I want like to go outside, so get project outside Tunisia. So I feel like I'm limited to the country, so I feel like since like I'm not located in that place, I need like to make double effort, but I don't see any result. I didn't even get invite to do interviews. So I feel like there is a lot of limitation there. So I was curious about what is the best strategy to hunt this kind of jobs. Or maybe it's the only solution is to move outside Tunisia to start getting reply for my request at least.
Thank you, Ahmed.
I have a thought on that. And I don't know if you're applying for full-time roles or contract roles, but I think it's probably easier to get a contract role or, you know, actual projects than a full-time role, because a lot of US companies, and you probably know this, but, you know, aren't able to do visas, and it's a much bigger undertaking to employ someone outside of the US. So if you come on as an independent contractor and maybe it's a short period of time, 3 to 6 months or a year, something like that, they can hire you essentially hourly. And then you're not an employee of the company. So that was my first thought. I think there's other like IT services companies that will hire you, and then, you know, you can be hired by their clients. So that could be another route. I don't know if you've tried any of
That's what I
that.
was thinking too. I mean, basically along that same thought process is I know that there are a fair amount of staffing firms that, and I mean, it's a conversation that happens a lot in the US right now, to be honest with you, is how can we save money on our talent? And it is going outside of the US. And often that is working with an outside staffing firm, or a staffing firm maybe that is in the US that is able to staff for folks that are overseas. I would recommend kind of digging into all of that. Like Krista said, either more IT driven companies or staffing firms that support for engineering and tech positions. I know it definitely exists out there. And it might make more sense, instead of going directly to the company, going through kind of like a third party that can help to do all the payroll and all that.
Yeah. And I'll just add, don't get discouraged, right? I mean, Larissa mentioned we post a position and get hundreds and hundreds of applications right now. Sadly, it's very much not a candidate driven market. It's an employer market right now because there's lots of demand. So don't get discouraged and keep trying, because just because you don't get one doesn't mean another won't open up.
Yeah, I'm curious because like I hear there is some AI tools that do the filter before even like some recruiter get to see your CV. So yeah, I was curious about this. Maybe it's one of the reasons. So maybe there is like some automation that just do the filter, and there is no like a human eye that can see potential on specific resume.
Yeah, I mean, I can say some of the applicant tracking systems have, like, you know, it'll perhaps share that you have more qualifications that are a fit to the job description. This person has 8 out of 10, or this person, you know, whatever's listed on your resume. But I will say recruiting has not moved to the point where the majority of recruiting has not moved to the point where it's 100% automated and recruiters aren't looking. It's still very much the recruiters making the decisions who's moving forward. The technology may aid in bringing some of that information forward, but it definitely isn't there yet. Hopefully it won't ever go there.
Great. Okay, so we have just a little more than 5 minutes left. I'm kind of curious actually, and I like to throw a curveball in now and then to our panel, popcorn style. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to talk about? You know, like, is there any burning questions like, oh, we should have talked about this topic? Totally fine if not. If we're hitting it out of the park right now, I can keep going, but I always want to leave room for burning desire topics.
I'll say something.
Thank you, Krista.
And again, this is like my experience on the receiving end of a lot of LinkedIn messages, and just on the topic of networking for the long term and the short term. I think it applies to both, but I think it really helps plant the seeds for long term. Many people will reach out to me and say like, hey, I know you're well networked in the recruiting space, even people that I've worked with before, or people that like I know, you know, I'm looking for a recruiting job. Can you keep me in mind? You know, that type of thing. But the amount of people that actually say like, hey, let's hop on a call and catch up. We haven't talked in a while. Like, that's much fewer and far between. And those are the people that are really going to be top of mind for me when I do hear of something, because I have recently spoken to them instead of just seeing them pop up in my LinkedIn messages for 2 seconds and then I forget about them a day later. So I would say don't underestimate the power of hopping on a 15-minute call with them to catch up and hear what's going on with them. That just plants that seed again for the long term.
That's such good advice, because it is about fostering the relationship.
Yeah. Yes,
Because who knows, maybe you'll get hired and then you can help that person.
exactly.
It might not be
Yep.
them helping you.
Yes, great point. Great point.
You know, it's one of the greatest gifts is to give back. You know, it's corny, but it's true. Because it's a long, hopefully a long life and a long career. And it's a big planet, but it's a real small world.
Great way to say it.
I
Agreed.
always say that if you put good juju out in the world, it'll come back to you.
Yeah, definitely. Karma is it's clever, I'll say. It's clever. Okay, in these last 5 minutes here, let's see. Here's a good one. How do you approach a person who is actually working your dream job and ask them out for, or ask them for coffee or a discovery call, information session, whether it's on LinkedIn or other platforms? How do you express your credibility without sounding clingy, right? So you want to know what they're doing, you want to learn more, but you want to be respectful. What's a good way to do that?
Mhm.
Holly or Larissa? Yeah, Larissa's
go
got
ahead,
it.
Holly, go ahead.
No, I wasn't. You go right ahead.
I was going to share sort of an anecdotal story. I'm also part of a few different mentor programs, and one of the mentor programs I'm a part of, all the mentees are suggested to have like coffee chats with people that are in industries or in the roles that they would love to get into. And one of my first meetings with, with my mentee was, okay, let's go through like, what is, she was sort of like, I'm not really getting any responses to my messages. Nobody wants to talk to me. And the message was, hi, I just applied to XYZ job at your company. I would love to work at your company. Can you help me? No one wants to respond to that, right? Like it's just so great. What we worked on is crafting a message that and I hate to use that sort of with them, but in a sense, right? Like what's in it for the person that you're reaching out to? And and again, right, we know, yes, good juju and all of those good things, but when we're thinking about, okay, they're working in a dream job, I would love to have this job that they have. Coming to them with something specific. Why? What do you love about the company that they work for? Or what have you done in your past that you feel like, my goodness, like this could be the next step in my career. And just saying, that it can be very straight, and I generally recommend anything that you're going to message via email or on LinkedIn that you keep it short and to the point. But truly just saying, I'm really impressed by your career. I would love an opportunity to even just get 15 minutes of your time to understand how you've gotten to this point in your career. Or right, like I love, in the case of what I was working with, on is specifically somebody within Sephora, right? And I've always dreamed about working for the beauty industry because of XYZ, again, would love an opportunity to understand how you got your foot in the door into beauty. But something specific, not just like, I want a job at your company,
Yeah, again, it's like, do your research and show up prepared, right? Whether that's for a job interview, a coffee date, which could be a potential mentor, who knows? It's like,
Yep. Yeah.
putting in the work, right? Holly, we only have 2 minutes left. Any final thoughts that you'd like to imbue upon our wonderful crowd here?
No, this is amazing. And I knew I was going to take away some key things today. So I will say this. Be creative. It doesn't have to be super formal either. I got a message this week and it was don't think this is crazy. And it was somebody I interviewed in 2017. She withdrew from the hiring process and had come back around to see if we could just chat about like this career crossroads she was at and where she could take her position now that she's gone through a couple opportunities and is now hit with a layoff. So I literally haven't thought about this person since she withdrew from my hiring process because I was heartbroken because she was like my
Mhm.
gold candidate. But don't be afraid to reach out. I immediately responded to her the same day, right? Which doesn't normally happen because of the creativity and thought she put into that message. So just be creative. Don't feel like it has to be form messages. Like share who you are as a person, because it's going to go a lot further than you think.
Yeah, like to bring it full circle to what Larissa was saying, that being vulnerable, being willing to be vulnerable, take a risk, take a chance, be creative. We love to say, radically self-express yourself here at Power to Fly. As long as it's kind and respectful to other people around you, it shines through and people were attracted to it. So I'd like to thank all three of you for being radically yourselves and vulnerable and wonderful. This was so much fun and so insightful. So let's give a digital round of applause to Larissa, Krista, and Holly. Thank you all so much. And thank you to our massive gathering today. We had so many people on the call, so much participation from around the entire planet. So thank you all, because this really is, it couldn't happen without you. So thank you so much. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And my friends on the panel, I hope we get to do this again. Please come back. This was lovely.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care now.
Bye.